China to face a food crisis by year-end? Experts, grain prices will exceed expectations. Super Typhoon Capricorn strikes. Guangdong fishermen seek shelter. Haikou shuts down completely. 700,000 Chinese pharmacies suffering losses. Closure wave more severe than bubble tea shops. Xi Jinping promises $50 billion aid to Africa, sparking outrage among Chinese citizens. Falun Gong practitioners repeatedly targeted. Longtime detainees face new abductions. New York governor's aide arrested. Chinese Consul General resigns amid U.S. crackdown. It's all covered in today's China Truths. China to face a food crisis by year-end? Experts, grain prices will exceed expectations. An X account, Kaijing Shujuku, or Financial Database in English, reports that Chinese economist Lu Linyuan warned China could face a food crisis by the end of this year or early next spring, potentially lasting 3 to 5 years, with food prices expected to soar to unprecedented levels. Some people have reacted with concern, noting that even pro-government experts are pessimistic, suggesting that a situation similar to the early 1960s food crisis and Great Famine might be looming. However, there are others who remain skeptical of Lu's views. An article by The Economist reported that the Chinese Communist Party's large-scale grain purchases and hoarding have significantly driven up global food prices. The lingering effects of the pandemic, geopolitical tensions, and last year's severe rainfall threatening wheat harvests have put pressure on China's food supply. To address these challenges, the CCP has resorted to stockpiling grain, among other measures. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that by mid-year, China's grain reserves will comprise 69% of the world's corn, 60% of rice, and 51% of wheat reserves. However, whether these reserves will ultimately benefit the general population remains uncertain. In recent years, General Secretary Xi Jinping has frequently stressed the importance of food security and increased domestic food production, preparing for potential disruptions such as natural disasters or strained international relations. Analysts suggest that the CCP's aggressive global grain buying and hoarding is a key factor contributing to rising global food prices. Is Xi Jinping's grand food strategy hinting at a food crisis? Chinese state media People's Daily reported that Xi Jinping recently stressed the need for a grand food strategy to secure China's food supply. During an inspection in Guangdong in April, Xi highlighted the importance of diversifying food sources from both land and sea, advocating for marine farming and the development of blue granaries. According to Xi, this strategy is aimed at ensuring food security by expanding beyond traditional grain crops to include a wider variety of food sources, while maintaining strict standards on quality and safety. He has consistently emphasized food security since taking office, famously stating, "The Chinese people's rice bowl must always be firmly held in our own hands, primarily filled with Chinese grain." Independent economist Qin Weiping, speaking to Radio Free Asia, pointed out that the CCP's primary concern is the security of its governance, which is closely tied to food security. He warned that a severe food crisis could pose a significant threat to the regime, suggesting that Xi's emphasis on the grand food strategy reflects traditional Chinese approaches of utilizing all available resources but also signals growing challenges in ensuring food security. Data from 2020 reveals a stark imbalance in China's food supply. The production of staple grains, corn, wheat, rice, and soybeans, totaled 560 million tons, while demand reached 697 million tons, leaving a deficit of 137 million tons. Soybeans and corn are largely dependent on imports. Qin Weiping believes these figures underscore the severity of the food security issue, interpreting Xi's grand food strategy as a veiled message to the public to brace for potential shortages and lower expectations, emphasizing that a variety of food, not just the traditional staples, must be accepted. Qin also highlighted that, even based on official data, China struggles to ensure basic food security, exacerbated by severe wealth disparity and a large low-income population. He recalled the Great Famine under the CCP's early rule, warning that a prolonged economic downturn could lead to a resurgence of starvation, which would then become a critical threat to the authorities beyond just a food crisis. Reports of starvation have surfaced from various regions in China. A university graduate from Beijing was found dead from hunger in a rental in Xi'an. A skeletal child was discovered faint from hunger by a delivery worker in Jiaozhou, Shandong, and instances of people starving on the streets of Dongguan, Guangdong, known for job opportunities, have been reported, along with many rural farmers forced into vagrancy. Despite these domestic challenges, the CCP continues to export significant quantities of vegetables to war-stricken and isolated Russia. The U.S. Department of Agriculture reports that Guangdong, Shandong, exports up to 500,000 tons of vegetables annually to Russia, including tomatoes, bell peppers, and carrots, mainly through the Manzhouli and Swafen ports. Planned economy cannot solve food supply issues. U.S.-based commentator Yakagawa discusses Xi Jinping's grand food strategy, suggesting it may lack practical value, as he believes that market liberalization, rather than planned economic measures, has historically addressed the needs of the Chinese people since the CCP's founding. He refers to historical instances, such as the Great Famine resulting from China's public ownership and planned economy in the 1950s and 1960s. According to Yakagawa, food supply and diversification issues were resolved only after the Cultural Revolution, when the household responsibility system allowed for semi-privatization, enabling the market to respond to shortages. Yakagawa views the reliance on planned economic methods to solve issues typically addressed by market economies as unrealistic, making the grand food strategy unlikely to resolve China's current challenges. He suggests that addressing China's food problems fundamentally requires a shift towards a market economy and land privatization. However, land in China remains state-owned, with citizens holding only usage rights, and recent local government land acquisitions for real estate development have led to significant amounts of unused land. Urbanization further reduces arable land, impacting food security. Yakagawa also points out ongoing food safety concerns in China. Despite the implementation of the food safety law in 2009, a study published in 2011 reported over 94 million annual cases of illness and approximately 8,500 deaths related to foodborne pathogens. He attributes these issues to the government, noting that the lack of adherence to laws contributes to broader problems within the legal system, affecting food safety compliance across the country. Super Typhoon Capricorn strikes. Guangdong fishermen seek shelter. Haikou shuts down completely. Super Typhoon Capricorn is set to make landfall between Guangdong, Hainan, and Dianbai, Guangdong, on September 6, prompting emergency measures across the region. Coastal fishing boats and fishermen in Guangdong have returned to port, and Haikou City in Hainan will implement measures to suspend classes, work, operations, and navigation starting noon on September 5. All flights at Haikou Milan International Airport have been cancelled. China's meteorological agency issued a red typhoon warning, with Capricorn intensifying to a super typhoon with maximum winds of level 17. Severe wave conditions are expected in the South China Sea, with alerts ranging from orange to red. Haikou is bracing for winds above level 15, heavy rainstorms, and storm surges. This could be the strongest typhoon to impact Hainan in the past decade. Ferry routes between Zhanjiang and Haikou have been suspended, and more than 80,000 fishing boats in Guangdong have returned to port. In Guangzhou, educational institutions have announced class suspensions for September 5. On the night of September 4, intense lightning and thunder lit up the skies over Hainan, resembling movie special effects, as captured by many local netizens. Most netizens commented that it was terrifying, saying things like, "I thought it was a nuclear bomb, and if you hadn't experienced it, you'd be scared. We were all frightened in Hainan last night." Some described the thunder as being so close that it felt like it was right on the rooftop. Students in school dormitories reported, "We couldn't sleep, so we sat up chatting all night." The lightning persisted, flashing continuously, causing classes to be suspended today. Capricorn is the first super typhoon to strike China this autumn, following 3 typhoons earlier this year. 700,000 Chinese pharmacies suffering losses, closure wave more severe than bubble tea shops. China's economic struggles are impacting various industries, including pharmacies, which face intensified closures with over 10,000 shut down in the first half of this year. 5 out of 6 leading pharmacy chains, including Xiyupingmin, Jianzijia, and Dashenlin, reported significant profit declines, with some seeing drops of up to 82.6%. Store closures have surged, with companies like Dashenlin and Yixintang nearly doubling their closures from the previous year. Nationwide, over 15,000 pharmacies closed in the first half of 2024, reflecting fierce competition. The physical pharmacy market shrank by 3.7%, with average sales per store down by 10.6%. Analysts draw parallels between pharmacy stocks and the past collapse of photovoltaic stocks, driven by overexpansion and price cuts, raising investor concerns. Since 2018, chains like Liebexing and Yifeng Pharmacy expanded aggressively, pushing the number of stores over 700,000 by mid-2024. However, predictions suggest a reduction to around 400,000 as the market corrects. The downturn isn't limited to pharmacies. Restaurants, including hot pot and bubble tea shops, are also closing at high rates, affecting equipment recyclers who are seeing a boost in business. The economic challenges and intense competition are reshaping multiple sectors. Xi Jinping promises $50 billion aid to Africa, sparking outrage among Chinese citizens. Speaking at the opening ceremony on September 5, Xi Jinping stated that China-Africa relations are at their best in history after 70 years of collaboration. He pledged an additional 360 billion yuan, over $50 billion, in support over the next 3 years, including 210 billion yuan in credit lines, 80 billion yuan in various aid forms, and a push for Chinese companies to invest at least 70 billion yuan in Africa. China will also provide 1 billion yuan in emergency food aid, create over 1 million jobs, offer 1 billion yuan in military aid, and grant zero-tariff treatment for 100% of products from the least developed countries that have diplomatic ties with China, including 33 African nations. China also supports African countries in issuing panda bonds in China, a move that has faced backlash online. Critics accuse Beijing of smashing pots and selling iron to benefit Africa while neglecting domestic issues, as China faces its own debt crisis. International relations expert Liu Ping told Radio Free Asia that this aid package aims to secure China's leadership role among the global South, with Africa holding strategic importance in securing support at international forums like the United Nations, especially on issues such as human rights and Taiwan. He emphasized that even amid economic downturns, the CCP will continue to prioritize its strategic ties with Africa, viewing it as essential for its global positioning against the West. Meanwhile, public discontent has been palpable. Netizens criticized the aid package, questioning why resources are being sent abroad while domestic needs go unmet. China has heavily invested in African infrastructure, becoming the largest bilateral lender to many African countries. However, this has raised concerns about debt traps. In 2022, China approved $4.61 billion in loans to Africa, the first significant increase since 2016. Africa remains a key target of China's Belt and Road Initiative, with over $700 billion in contracts signed from 2013 to 2023. Strict security during China-Africa Forum. During the China-Africa Cooperation Forum, Beijing imposed strict security measures, including travel restrictions and forced tours for dissidents. Videos online showed heavy police presence and passenger checks at bus stops, with volunteers wearing red armbands helping maintain order. Independent journalist Gao Yu reported that security measures even blocked dissidents like poet Ji Feng from returning to Beijing. The Epoch Times noted that over 20 petitioners were detained before the summit, with some still in custody. Radio Free Asia reported similar crackdowns in Beijing, where petitioners were rounded up and sent to detention centers. A security officer in Beijing's Chaoyang district confirmed that retirees were mobilized to help maintain order around key areas like Tiananmen Square. In Nanchang, Jiangxi, a resident reported being stopped by police due to summit-related restrictions. Public frustration is evident, with netizens accusing the government of prioritizing foreign aid over domestic needs, saying, "They have Chinese faces but not Chinese hearts." Falun Gong practitioners repeatedly targeted, longtime detainees face new abductions. In Gansu Province, Falun Gong practitioner Yang Shuagui was abducted by police on March 4, with his home raided and belongings seized. He was detained and falsely charged, facing a non-trial on August 23. Yang has previously served 13 years in prison through 2 wrongful sentences. Yang's case reflects a broader pattern of ongoing persecution against Falun Gong practitioners in China. Over 25 years of CCP repression, many practitioners have endured repeated illegal labor camp sentences and imprisonments, often exceeding 10 years. Despite past incarcerations, they are once again being abducted and detained, highlighting the sustained nature of the CCP's crackdown. On March 27, Yang's family was notified of his unlawful arrest by the Anning District Procuratorate in Lanzhou. Yang's elderly mother has repeatedly appealed to authorities for his unconditional release, expressing pride in her son's practice of Falun Gong and his commitment to being a good person. The August 23 hearing lasted around 2 hours, with many attendees, including witnesses. Yang calmly defended the legality of Falun Gong. During the trial, a witness contradicted a claim made by the judge, leading to the witness being expelled from the courtroom. Whether Yang will face another trial or be released remains uncertain. Yang Shuagui, 60, is a retired veteran and former staff member at Lanzhou's Second People's Hospital. He suffered from severe psoriasis due to the damp conditions during wars. After returning from service, he worked at Lanzhou's Second Hospital. Later, he developed an undiagnosed illness that left him bedridden. In 1996, he began practicing Falun Gong, and his health improved significantly. Since the CCP's crackdown, Yang has been illegally sentenced twice, enduring severe torture in various prisons. Recent abductions of Falun Gong practitioners. Recent cases reported by Minghui.org include the abductions of multiple Falun Gong practitioners in July. Many of these individuals have already spent over a decade in wrongful imprisonment and continue to face persecution. Sichuan Xing Yuxian abducted again after 16 years of imprisonment. Xing Yuxian, 61, from Sangxi County, Sichuan, was abducted on July 24 and is now detained at Guangdong Detention Center. Zheng, who has a history of over 16 years in illegal labor camps and imprisonment, was taken while appealing for Falun Gong in Beijing and has faced multiple sentences over the years. Hunan's Su Yunyan abducted after 12.5 years in prison. Su Yunyan, 61, from Yongqing County, Hunan, was abducted on July 20 by local police and has been detained at Yongqing Detention Center for over a month. Su has endured multiple abductions and 2 wrongful sentences totaling 12.5 years. Liaoning's Zhang Shuxia abducted again after 13 years of imprisonment. Zhang Shuxia, 61, from Tiling City, Liaoning, was abducted on July 12 while shopping and is currently detained at Tiling Detention Center. Zhang has a history of over 13 years in illegal labor camps and imprisonment, having been repeatedly targeted for her efforts to expose the persecution of Falun Gong. These recent abductions underline the ongoing and persistent persecution of Falun Gong practitioners in China, despite decades of resilience against CCP repression. New York Governor's aide arrested, Chinese Consul General resigns amid U.S. crackdown. Former Deputy Chief of Staff for New York's Governor, Sun Wen, or Linda Sun, and her husband were arrested by the FBI on September 3, accused of acting as agents for the CCP. The arrest has sparked widespread attention in the U.S. The following day, Chinese Consul General in New York, Huang Ping, announced his resignation. Analysts believe the CCP's infiltration has shifted from targeting U.S. society to penetrating government sectors, and the FBI's decisive action has sent a clear warning to CCP agents. According to a 65-page indictment by the U.S. Department of Justice, Linda Sun faces 10 charges, including visa fraud and money laundering. Her husband, businessman Hu Xiao, also faces multiple charges. The indictment reveals that Sun twice forged the governor's signature in 2018 and 2019, allowing Chinese officials to obtain U.S. visas. During her tenure, Sun repeatedly interfered with New York State's interactions with Taiwanese officials, preventing meetings between the governor and Taiwan's diplomats. Commentator Tang Jingyuan told the Epoch Times that Linda Sun's case is unique, highlighting a shift in CCP's espionage tactics. Historically, CCP spies targeted human rights activists and dissidents. Sun, however, held a high-ranking government position, influencing New York State policies and U.S. diplomatic relations. Tang noted that this case reflects a broader CCP strategy to penetrate U.S. government sectors, marking an increase in FBI's focus on internal security and preparing for further confrontation with the CCP. U.S. sends shockwaves through CCP agents. New York-based commentator Li Daiyu described Linda Sun's arrest as a major event in New York, given her prominence in the Chinese community. Sun's high position enabled her to facilitate CCP operations, and her arrest has likely alarmed many CCP agents in the U.S., who now fear they could be next. Li pointed out that recent arrests of CCP agents, including pro-democracy activist Tang Yuanjun and Chinese-American Li Ping, indicate that the FBI is expanding its crackdown on CCP activities in the U.S. He suggested that the FBI likely has more names on its list but is strategically withholding action to avoid alerting other agents prematurely. Following Linda Sun's arrest, New York Governor Kathy Hochul condemned her actions as a betrayal of the government and urged the State Department to expel Consul General Huang Ping. However, State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller clarified that Huang had left his position as part of a routine rotation. Consul General Huang Ping, who began his term in November 2018, was expected to serve until November this year, leading to speculation about the true reason behind his sudden departure. Zhao Junchuo, host of the U.S. China-Taiwan Warfare Room, stated that it is clear Huang Ping directly oversaw Linda Sun's actions. He believes Huang Ping fled once the scandal broke to avoid further exposure. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.